She has been called a poisoner, a seductress, and the most dangerous woman in Renaissance Italy. Even Victor Hugo, the legendary author who wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Mis, wrote a play about her villainy. Generations of historians repeated the same story, that Lucrezia Borgia was a murderous femme fatale who left a trail of bodies across Renaissance Europe. There's just one problem: almost none of it is true. Today we're going to meet the real Lucrezia Borgia, and what we find is something far more heartbreaking than the legend. A brilliant woman who was used by one of the most ruthless families in European history, and who somehow emerged with her humanity still intact. This is History's Mysteries. To understand Lucrezia, first you have to understand the Borgias. After all, family is one of the central motivators in our lives. Family is the motivation behind pretty much everything, especially in European history, where a family name really and truly meant something. Yes, I am aware, I am butchering their last name. Her father was a man named Rodrigo Borgia. In 1492, the same year that Columbus discovered the Americas, just to give you a sense of the time, Rodrigo bought his way to becoming Pope Alexander VI, bribing the College of Cardinals with the Holy Trinity of bribes: money, land, and promises of political power. It was one of the most brazenly corrupt elections in the history of the Catholic Church. Her brother was Cesare Borgia. Brilliant, ruthless, and utterly without scruples, he was so effective at politically maneuvering and manipulating that Machiavelli used him as the primary inspiration for his famous book, The Prince, a guide on holding and acquiring power at any cost. And then there was Lucrezia. Born in 1480, the illegitimate daughter of Rodrigo and his long-term mistress, Venazia de Catane. From the moment she was old enough to be useful, her father and her brother had exactly one purpose for her. She was a political asset, a tool, a bargaining chip in human form, and they intended to use her accordingly. Lucrezia was married for the first time at around 12 or 13 years old. Now, to be fair, this wasn't unusual for the time, but the circumstances are rather revealing. Her early betrothals were broken off whenever better political alliances presented themselves. Her first actual marriage, to Giovanni Sforza, Lord of Pesaro, lasted 5 years before her father decided that the alliance to the Sforzas wasn't necessary anymore, and he wanted to have the marriage annulled. Giovanni refused, so the Borgias did what the Borgias do. They began spreading a rumor that Giovanni was impotent, a humiliating accusation in Renaissance Italy. They threatened, pressured, and manipulated until Giovanni finally caved and signed the annulment papers, agreeing that the marriage had never been consummated. Through all of this, Lucrezia had no say. Her second husband was Alfonso of Aragon, the illegitimate son of the King of Naples. This marriage was different. By all accounts, Lucrezia loved Alfonso, and he even loved her. They even had a son together, named after her father, Rodrigo, and for a moment it seemed like Lucrezia might have actually found happiness. Then her brother Cesare decided the Aragon alliance was no longer useful either. In August of 1500, Alfonso was attacked on the steps of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, but he survived, and Lucrezia nursed him back to health herself, so terrified of another attempt on his life that she personally cooked all of his food, but it wasn't enough. A month later, Cesare's most trusted assassin, Nicolado Corella, entered Alfonso's room and strangled him to death in his own bed. And although he almost certainly acted on Cesare's orders, it was never proven. And since Cesare was over the investigation, Nicolado got off scot-free. Lucrezia is now 20 years old. She has lost her husband and whatever illusions she had left about her family. So where did the poisoner reputation come from? The Borgias as a family were widely rumored to use poison as a political tool, and those rumors were almost certainly true about Rodrigo and Cesare. A mysterious white powder called cantarella appears in multiple accounts of their enemies dying suddenly and conveniently. But Lucrezia? The evidence against her personally is virtually non-existent. Almost every accusation against her came from two sources: enemies of the Borgia family who had obvious political motivations to destroy their reputations, and Giovanni Sforza, her humiliated first husband, who began spreading increasingly lurid stories about her after the annulment out of pure revenge. The most disturbing stories, including tales of an illicit relationship with her own father and brother, originated almost entirely with Giovanni, and then political opponents enthusiastically took them as gospel truth and ran with them. Modern historians, however, take those with extreme skepticism. The poisoner reputation was invented by people her family had wronged, and then carried along by writers who found the villain version of her more entertaining than the truth. Ignore the different shirt, there's no continuity errors here, I promise. In 1502, Lucrezia was married for the third and final time to Alfonso d'Este, heir to the Duchy of Ferrara. The Este family, however, were not fans of this match. They were one of the oldest and most well-respected families in Italy, and wanted nothing to do with the scandalous Borgias. Alfonso's father had to essentially be bribed with a much larger than usual dowry in order to accept the marriage at all. But something unexpectedly pleasant happened. Away from Rome in Ferrara, Lucrezia flourished in a way she never had before. Away from her father and brother, all the political violence and maneuvering, she was able to live on her own terms and find out who she truly was. She became a patron of the arts, corresponding personally with the poet Pietro Bimbo and supporting numerous artists, musicians, and poets. She turned the Este court into one of the most vibrant places in all of Italy. The poet Ludovico Ariosto dedicates portions of his poem Orlando Furioso to her. In it, he specifically praises her chastity and her beauty, and compares her to gold and silver. She managed the affairs of Ferrara with masterful competence during her husband's frequent military absences. She governed, handled the finances, and settled disputes, earning a reputation with the people of Ferrara for fairness and generosity. She even visited hospitals, cared for the sick, and funded convents. This woman, that history tried to paint as a poisoner, spent her later years washing the feet of poor women as an act of religious devotion. The people of Ferrara didn't just respect her. They genuinely loved her. Lucrezia Borgia died in 1519 at just 39 years old from complications following the birth of her 10th child. Yeah, 10. That's insane. The real Lucrezia Borgia was not a seductress, nor was she a poisoner. She was a woman who was born into one of history's most ruthless families, who had no control over the first half of her life, and who used the last half to become something that her family never was. Genuinely good. This video was inspired by a comment on one of my previous videos on Cleopatra, asking me to do one on Lucrezia Borgia. If you have any historical figures you might like to see me do a video on in the future, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Hit the subscribe button. This has been History's Mysteries. Stay safe. It sounds so cliche, dude.